All right, any questions so far? So now let's take a look at doing functions with lists or functions over lists. So I want to write a function. Best way to do that is in a file. And I want to be able to write a function that's going to average grades in our class. Also, I'm going to make an assumption here. Assume only 5 grades in our class. So I'm going to make this assumption. Later on, we're going to look at how to handle lists of arbitrary length, but we're not doing that today. Today, we're using a fixed length, and we're assuming that there are 5. If there's not 5 in there, we're going to have a problem. If there's less than 5, we're going to get an error. If there's more than 5, then it'll only do the first 5. So let's take a look at writing a function to handle this list. So to write a function, we use the keyword def, give it a name. How about AVG? Give it a parameter. I'm going to use grades, even though that's actually going to be a different grades than the one we're using. Always end your function with a block, or sorry, with a colon before you start the body or the block of inside of it, which must be indented, right? So how do we do this? How do we calculate the average? Well, we have 5 numbers. First we want to sum them all up, and then we divide by 5, right? That's how we calculate average. So sum them all up. Grade 0, grades 1, grades 2, grades 3, grades 4. Do I stop there or do I add one more? I said 5, right? Is that going to be correct? And instead of calling that, let's just call this sum and just have S. Is this going to be correct? It's going to work? No, there's something wrong. What's wrong? Yeah, this is grade 5. Remember, we said 5 grades in the class. We started 0. That's actually 6 indices right there. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5. We only go from 0 to 4. So we actually need to delete that last one, or we're going to crash. So we have the sum. Then we just calculate the average, which is just the sum divided by the number. And we just return that average. So using the keyword average. Save that. Stick that inside of our lecture folder for everybody to look at later. Average pi. And then if we run this, of course, nothing happened in this file, except it loaded our function. And so we could pass in grades directly. Actually, it screwed up our grades, probably because of this right here. So we can't pass in grades now, which is fine. I can just pass in a new list with the same numbers. $98.2. I think that's okay. I don't know. I could grab a calculator or a spreadsheet and I can do that, but let's just check some other things first before we do this. Let's do all 5 of them with zeros. So it worked with zeros. We call that an edge case. It's like that's a weird case that probably won't happen, but it's a good idea to check it. We call these sanity checking, the various cases, the things that could happen. And it's good to test out and try your function with a lot of different values. So you can make sure you get what you expect. If the sum is 0, my average better be 0. And this actually worked. So now let's do 2, 0, 2, 0, 1. What's that going to be? 2 plus 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 divided by 5. I should get 1. I do get 1. So that's what I expect, right? So when we're checking this stuff out, we think about a scenario where, I mean, this obviously we could check these numbers. But if we're just looking to see if it works, we can try some other numbers that are easier for us to understand. Even if they're not realistic scenarios. I mean, I really hope when our exam that we don't have these kinds of scores. I would rather see scores like this. But since they're not realistic, but we're using them to test our function just to make sure it works correctly. And you might want to test out some negative values too, just to see if those work. -2, 0, and 1. What's that going to give us? Well, 2 plus -2 is 0. Plus 1 is going to give us 1. 1 divided by 5, 0.2. Yeah, that worked. So the average function works on any list of numbers. It doesn't have to be grades. So any list of numbers that has 5 elements in it, and it will compute the average. Now, it must be numbers. If we put in a string in there, we're going to get in trouble trying to sum it together and divide by 5. But I could put 2 numbers in here. But it didn't work because I didn't have enough numbers in there. Remember I said the range, but if I put 3, 4, and I put this other one in here, it actually ignores the 90. It only works on lists of 5 because we only accessed up to the fifth element, so 0 through 4. Again, we'll find out how to do that later. Later this week, we'll start working on that kind of thing, so how to do variable length lists. But for now, we're just making an assumption saying that, hey, there's 5 things in there. And always 5 things. And if there's less than 5, we have a problem. And more than 5, we're just ignoring it. Any questions on this function?